listening to the Ball Talk podcast with me, Ryan Bailey. This podcast is brought to you by Adapt Athletic Performance and Therapy. Head over to Instagram and give them a follow at adapt_clinic. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe or follow button as well. Without further ado, let's get straight into the podcast. So this is episode number 53 of the Ball Talk podcast, the second podcast of the weekend. Second Sligo man on the podcast this weekend. We had Luke Towie yesterday, and today it's Marty Duffy. Marty, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
Marty, for the next minute, your new position as chair of the referees appointment committee, just explain what your role is going to be from now on.
Well, I suppose in its most basic form, it is the committee that I'm chair of, which consists of three people. You have Pat Horan from Offaly, ex-intercounty referee, and we have Derek Kent from Wexford. He's actually chairman of CCC for the next 3 years at national level, so he's part of the committee as well. So we, like as I said, in this most basic form, what we'll do is we do all the appointments at national level, league, championship, club games, anything that comes under the auspices of Croke Park, we look after that. But I suppose on the wider thing would be that you have to look at bringing referees through the system. So you're talking about taking your newer referees that comes in from the provincial systems that come onto the national panel. So you have to sort of or chart a pathway for them, so that look at what the Uachtaráin wants at the end of 3 years is that some of these guys are going to be in a position that they have the relevant experience and the necessary time spent at the bigger games, that if you need to put them into an All-Ireland semi-final or final, that they have that. So we got to chart that path. And I suppose, look, there's a whole lot of things that come into that I don't want in a minute, but like we'd say, the whole assessment system that there is there for referees. There's a new mentoring system coming in for referees at national level. So we have to take all that information, bring it together, and then make the appointments. And as I said, chart that pathway for the referees against that.
And coming into becoming chairman, is it a process of moving up in the ranks as a referee and coming onto the committee and then being made chairman? Is it an interview, a phone call, or?
It's a phone call. It was a phone call probably about maybe 2-3 weeks before Congress from Larry McCarthy. I suppose once I retired from refereeing, it's gone on 4 years now, and I suppose I was lucky enough that around the time that I was retiring, Jerry McGovern came in as president of Connacht Council, and Jerry asked me to be the referee administrator for Connacht for his 3-year term. Now that finished in January, and John Murphy, a proud Sligo man, is now Uachtaráin of Connacht, and he asked me to stay on again. So I have that role for 3 years as well. But in that role, then one of the things that it gives you is that it puts you onto the National Referees Development Committee, and that as the Connacht representative. So I suppose I've been there. I was chairman of the advisor subcommittee last year, and I also we were putting together a sort of a program for advisorship. It was the first time we ever had it. So myself and Sean Martin from Roscommon, it was sort of, that task was given to us to sort of to write the program for that and how it was going to be implemented. So that was a big part of it. So as I said, so that came. I probably would. The other thing is that I would have known Larry for a long time as well, because there is a connection between New York and Connacht, and going back all the way to 2001, I think was the first time I went over to referee a match over there, an FBD final, and that was the first time I met Larry, and I would have met him on and off on numerous occasions, and we'd have dealings since that.
So when you said when you retired as a referee, retired from refereeing, was this a position that you could envisage yourself being in a few years' time?
Look, I've always been interested in the sort of the administration side of it as well, and like I've been on the referees committee in Sligo while I was still refereeing. When I was refereeing on the inter-county panel, we had again a subcommittee of referees, myself and David Coldrick and Maurice Deegan, and we were the referees representatives to represent, we said, the views of the referees to Croke Park and to whoever was sitting in the chair at the particular time. So I suppose I had that definitely had that interest in it. If I had a job that I would have loved to have done coming out of referee and finishing referee, it was the actual Connacht job, because look, I had loads of things, and I said it at the time to Jerry, like, I was a great man to talk the talk, like, but I had to be able to walk the walk, and I had a lot of things in my head that I thought maybe that we could set up, and down into the counties that we could set up that would improve the lot of the referee and the system that was there. So look, it was the ideal job for me. And then I suppose the natural progression then, like the decisions about refereeing and the general direction of refereeing at national level is made on the development committee, and being on that committee, then you just get a feel for what can be done and how it can be done. So I suppose it was a very natural progression. Now you're at it's obviously the position is the appointment of the youth drawn. So look, I was delighted that I got the call. It sort of came from left field, but like, to me, it feels like a sort of natural progression through it, and it's something I have a huge interest in and a huge interest in developing.
And in terms of your roles, your aims in your new role now, you've said that getting referees to, younger referees and build them up that you can throw them into an All-Ireland semi-final. Would that be, I'm sure that is one of the main aims of your role now over the next few years?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like, I think that's one thing that the youth drawn, when he spoke to us since Congress, like he has said, look, that's one thing that he wants done. But I suppose it's like everything else. It's like a lot of jobs in the GAA, and like a lot, maybe like refereeing. Like, when things are going well, nobody wants to know about it, and that's fine. You just do your job, you get it. And once the appointments are good and there's no major difficulties, nobody cares. But it's when the day comes that, look, if something goes wrong, or somebody says, well, he should never have been in that game, or he didn't have the relevant experience, or whatever that may be, like, then it comes back and then everybody wants to know you. So look, I suppose the first thing is that with the national referees that are there, you have to get those appointments right. You have to get the right people into the right games. Then you have to look at, as part of that, you have to look at the varying experience of guys. So there's guys there that's just coming in. They'll be coming through the probably lower divisions in league, probably won't even make a championship panel, we'll say, maybe for the first few years, but you've got to give them the relevant experience in the league, that maybe someday in a year or two that their name will be on the table for a championship panel, which is 18 referees in football and 12 in hurling. And then you have guys that are in the middle tier, there a few years, have some experience, but are they going to make the step to the next level, to the top level, to where you have probably 5 or 6 guys operating like in both football and hurling? So can you challenge those guys with the new one? So it is a pathway, and as I said, the whole thing about the mentoring is a new thing. It's going to be trialled over the next probably over the National League and the Championship this year, with a view to bringing it in, and then maybe bringing it down to the provinces as well. So you have to take that on board, what those mentors are saying to you about referees and how they're going, and feedback. And you have assessors and advisors, as they're called now, at every game. So you have to take their opinions into consideration. What do they think? Where do they think the referees are? Where are their strengths and weaknesses? So yeah.
I'm just putting this scenario in front of you now. There's a lot of people sent in questions. I put up on Instagram asking people to send in some questions to you, and one that stuck out for me. And if
thanks for that.
If one that stuck out for me, I found it an interesting one, was let's say if it was me coming to you as someone who wanted to get into refereeing, and I said, Marty, what 3 things would you look for in a referee, or what 3 things would you say to a young referee to progress themselves?
God, that's a big question. Look, I suppose at every county, every year, you have referee courses for new referees. In that bunch, then I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question, but I give you a feel for what I would say. Within that bunch, you'll have different expectation levels. You will have maybe guys that have finished playing maybe coming out around maybe 30, middle late 30s, who want to stay involved or like to give it a go. And look, an ambition, and a very clear ambition for them would be to do football within their county and referee a county final. Then, like we say, you'd have guys maybe that would be coming in at a younger age group. They like the idea of refereeing, see a career in front of them that'll bring them all the way to Croke Park, but may not have the ability or the dedication to it that'll get them there. And then you have the guys, you can pick out young guys early on that have the dedication to it. They want to learn. When you're advisor to them or mentoring them, and you talk to them about, look, you have to do this, or you need to do that, or possibility that you might need to look at this, and you see them just taking it on board. So it's very hard. Sometimes it's very hard to say, because the guy that wants to do club football and referees county final, he'll work at it, but he probably fitness wise and that side of it, he doesn't have to reach the same sort of level as the guy, the likes of your Barry Judge would say, as an example in Sligo, those guys, what they have to do at national level, like month on month, year on year, and so what you'd be saying to answer your question, I suppose I'm doing it very long winded, but what you would be saying to them is like, all you can do, you have to know the rules, right? Like we say, referees make mistakes. An error of judgment is an error of judgment. Everybody makes them. Players make them. Managers make them. Referees make them, even though people think that they shouldn't. So that's one thing. Like, you should never ever be caught out on a rule because you don't know a rule. Like, there's absolutely, in my opinion, no excuse for a referee not knowing a rule or interpreting a rule incorrectly. And the other thing I would say to any referee is honesty, right? That you will make mistakes, but if you can turn around to anybody at the end of a game and say, yeah, look, I got that wrong. I made the absolute best call that I could have made at that particular time with the information in front of me. I think a lot of people accept that then for what it is. So if you have absolute honesty in every call you make, absolute honesty with people, I think you go a long way.
You spoke about the rule book there. Is there any sort of, I suppose you call them a pet peeve that you would have, that you see maybe either referees getting that decision wrong because they don't maybe not know the rules, or players thinking they know the rule but they know the wrong rule? Is there any ones that stand out for you?
Players in general think they know a lot of rules, and they know, and in fairness, some of them do, and some of them know parts of the rule. My favorite one from players is that somebody tackling with a closed fist and pumping into the kidneys of somebody in front of them, and you blow them for a free, and they turn around and they put up one hand and say, "One hand, ref." Yeah, but the fact that you're putting your fist 6 inches into his kidneys, that didn't seem to still one hand. The one that I think that's not refereed at any level really is the mark. Maybe came in a little bit better last year, because the idea of the mark was that it gives the advantage to the player that catches the ball, and you should be allowed if you decide to play on, you're allowed 4 steps before you're tackled, or if you decide to take the mark, everyone else has to retreat 30 meters. Now, there's sanctions against players that don't retreat 30 meters or don't allow the player to travel for their 4 steps, but we just don't implement it. We still give the tackler the advantage there, when really we should be giving the catcher and the mark taker. And I think it's one that, and the other thing that drives me nuts a little bit is frees being taken. They're supposed to travel 30 meters, and you see fellas turn around and popping the ball back 4-5 meters to somebody, and it just gets, it goes on. So small ones, but
yeah. Can you remember the first game you refed? That's another question that came in.
I can't actually believe it. The first game I refed actually was a ladies' game. I refereed ladies' football as well as men's at the very beginning, and the first one I refereed was a game in Clonakul, long time ago. And actually, I didn't even have a referee's kit at the time. I remember I was actually wearing club shorts, but I was very, only after doing the course, and it was one of these cases where somebody had pulled out and I was asked just to go at short notice. That was the first one. And my first game in men's or underage boys football was in my neighbouring club here at Castleconnor at under 14 level.
Okay.
So yeah, thankfully reasonably uneventful both games. Maybe apart from my attire on the one in Clunacool, I think that everything else went reasonably okay.
In terms of referee criticism, Marty, was there ever a stage, maybe in your younger years, that you, maybe was there a stage where you nearly packed it in or said, "Is this for me?" Or did you just want to keep going at it?
I suppose a lot of it depends on the criticism. Like I have said that criticism at club level a lot of times, right, would be from maybe outside the wire. You know, people that are passionately involved in their clubs and with no disrespect to them, but an awful lot of them that wouldn't ever have read a rule book. Do you know? Like it's not in there. So like and the people that are criticizing you during a club game, if you met them a half an hour later down the road, they'd be having a chat with you and say, "Oh, geez, you know, I'd never do your job, and you're mighty to do it." But like that's just the nature of it. The thing, my apologies. The thing I found hardest to deal with was, like we say on the national stage, was when you got. Sometimes you're there. Look, you go on the national stage and you make mistakes. You're there to be criticised. That's fair enough, but it shouldn't be personal. Is the first thing, and I think like that some of it sometimes is you have no right to reply. So you have somebody maybe sitting on a Sunday night on the Sunday game or wherever and saying, you know, well, I think this is what he was doing, or I think this is what he should. You know, very easy to say, but like that sometimes can be, and unfortunately those type of platforms set the agenda for the week. So and again, it's like what I said earlier. You could go and you could referee 10 games and there's no issue with it, and nobody knows you're even there. And you go out one day and you make a mess up or something, and then everybody knows, and then that's the agenda set for a few weeks. So, and the other thing I suppose as well was that I felt always, while it didn't happen locally here, like I have 4 children, like, and like at that stage they were young, still there, some of them, and going to school, and like it's one thing for me to have to listen to it. Like I was the one that went out there, I was on the pitch, I probably made the mistake, but like, you know, they shouldn't have to look at it or listen to it, and I found that at times difficult. And I suppose I've talked to other referees over my time that I would be close to that find that difficult and would found it, you know, where they would be very close to very good referees and guys that have come back since and made a major contribution. But we're very close to just walking away for that reason, you know. And you know, and I know that Uchtran touched on it in his inauguration speech, like, but I think that the keyboard warriors, like, and some of them don't even have the balls to put their name to it. I think it's just scandalous, you know. Sometimes I think what's allowed is just scandalous. Fine, make a mistake, be criticised, don't make it personal, you know, and definitely don't bring people's character or where they come from or what they do into it.
Can you see any way of stopping that, Marty?
I think it's I do think I don't think you're ever going to stop the keyboard warriors, like, because like in any facet of society at the minute, it's there. Doesn't matter what you do. You know, anytime you put your head above the parapet, like it's there. So that's not going to stop to a point. I think what we have to educate our own members more about the effect that abuse can have. And look, I've seen it. I didn't have to travel at times too far to see it, where you have maybe young referees and they go out and look at their inexperience and they make mistakes, but they don't just, like, sometimes parents maybe at underage matches and they just, you know, like this young lads that come along and wants to see X team beaten or Y team beaten. Like, that's not the case, but people just lose that sense of what's right and wrong. And you know, you say to them sometimes, you know, like, well, what about if it was your own son or your own daughter that was the referee? Would you let somebody else? You know, so I think sometimes, look, at passion is good. You know, the love of the game, the love of the club is good, but sometimes I think we have to take a step back and just say, look, at everybody's in this voluntarily, and they do their best. Like people make mistakes, but how do you stop it? I'm not sure that you can. I think I do. Sorry, I will say one thing. I do believe that every club should have a policy that when the game is on, if they have somebody that's out of line, out of order on their sideline, there should be somebody there from the club to say, look, what you're saying is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to us as a club, and it's not acceptable to officials and everyone that come to the club. And look, it's something that we talked about a lot in our own club, and we're no different than any other club. We have our problems. We're not saints, but we made a conscious effort to say to people, listen, that's not acceptable. That kind of behaviour is not acceptable on the sideline. Like, we also have a lot of families coming to matches, and it's not acceptable for kids to be there listening to somebody just bellowing this absolute, stuff out of them. Like, it's just not, to me, it's not good enough. And we haven't solved the problem here, but it is something that we're actually trying to, and I think clubs have to.
Yeah.
I do.
I think it's about 20, could be 30 episodes back. I had David Goff join me on the podcast, and David spoke about, I asked him, and it's a question I'm going to pose to yourself as well, about if there was one rule that you could change in the game. And David spoke before, I think it was on Off the Ball, about this as well, about the green card rule from that they use in hockey, that he'd like to see it brought in, where I think it's to loosely explain it, where if the management of a team is mouthing at the referee, that the captain of the team will be given a 2-minute sin bin, or whatever the equivalent would be in a full Gaelic or hurling match. Could you see something like that coming in, or would it work? And as well as that, is there a rule change that you would like to see made?
I like the idea of it. I think as an organisation, probably, and in the system we have for changing rules, I think it would be very hard to get that passed. So while I do like the idea, and I do think it would work, I think it would have an effect. I feel that it would take huge selling from below and above to get it passed. I think, and again, I could just go back to, and without going over my last answer again, I think that the real key to that long term is education. Is about talking to parents, talking to players. I think clubs are the backbone of our organisation, and if every club takes it on themselves to have a policy of a proper code of behaviour that is adhered to, and that the club is willing to stand by. And maybe it might mean going to somebody at a game and saying, look, I'm sorry, if you're going to continue this, we prefer if you weren't here. As regards a rule change, at one stage I would have been very much for taking out picking the ball off the ground with the foot, that go the same as ladies football. But to be honest, I've changed my mind on that. I think it's the skill of the game, and I think it should be kept. And I think it's actually been implemented and refereed better now as well. Because one time, not before your time, but like we'd say, if the ball was running at all at any sort of pace, like fellas could come and just scoop it, where that's not allowed anymore. I'm not sorry, it was never allowed, but now it's been challenged. And I'd be slow to bring in any other rule changes. I think we have an absolute plethora of rule changes coming at us every year. Some of them I think are beneficial, not sure about all. So I'd be slow at the moment to bring in anything, unless it absolutely was something that was glaring that had to help the game. Like we say, an example was the rules committee brought forward about the pull down inside the 20-metre line, and it's going to be trialled in the league and championship in both hurling and football. And I think, look, at hurling, people in general are against the black card, but it needed something. There was some very glaring examples last year of look, at I'm the age I am, I can still go out and pull somebody down if I have to, if he's getting by me. There's no skill in it, so look, you have to reward skillful players, and if that means somebody spending 10 minutes in the bin and a penalty or whatever, well, so be it.
Just to wrap up, Marty, so you've taken up one chairman's role, and you're already chairman of the club as well in Enniscrone Kilglass. Can you explain you're doing a bit more of a renovation on the grounds there? Just talk us through what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment we have some total of a back wall is all we have of our actual clubhouse left. We started our development just before the lockdown, the last lockdown was called. So that's really literally all we have is a back wall. We are extending our dressing rooms, so there'll be anyone that knows the ground. They'll be moving out further towards the pitch area, just a walkway between the dressing rooms and the pitch. So we'll have four bigger dressing rooms with treatment rooms on the ground floor, and toilets and shower facilities. Also, there'll be a lift on the ground floor. Upstairs is going to be, it'll be roughly about half. Anyone that doesn't know our ground, but we have an astroturf, an indoor astroturf, which is 30 meters by 15 meters. And so we'd say we will have an area upstairs in the new development now that will be roughly about half that size again, which we'll have a kitchen area. We're going to move our meeting room up there. We're probably in time going to maybe use it or part of it as a gym, and you'll have your press box and that will be there as well. So it's actually, look at it, it's that coupled with the extra facilities we have in the building for the AstroTurf, like, will give us a lot of gives a lot of space and a lot of scope, and like thankfully we have good numbers at underage and we want to keep attracting them.
Best of luck with that, Marty, and the best of luck in your new position as well, and thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.